Hey guys, before we get this party started, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Kyoto Botanicals. For those that don't know, Kyoto's Botanicals provides handcrafted CBD products with a premium full spectrum hemp extract and organic botanical ingredients. Currently, Kyoto's product line offers everything from tinctures, gummies, body oils, body balms, and face serums, all the way to dog treats. So there's everything for you and your furry best friend. If you're curious exactly about what may make you tick or what may be the perfect ailment or product for you, go ahead and check out KyotoBotanicals.com. That's KYOTO Botanicals.com and see their whole product listing as well as what may tickle your fancy the most. Personally, I've been cooking it on the beef bacon flavored dog treats for Jerry and the crew, as well as a CB infused broad spectrum TH-free gummy that has been a little bit nice way to start in the morning. So I definitely give them the Stoned Appetit recommendation of the week, and we want to thank them so much for being a sponsor of the podcast. All right, Zane, hit that music. Let's get this party started. We have Kris Moon from the James Beard Foundation and Emily Hutto from Radcraft right here in Colorado. Cheers to a great episode.
The suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
It's one of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
Wheaties! I got Wheaties pots!
Great. I can't wait to goof off with you. This is awesome. Thanks so much for the interest.
It'd be the most fun part of my day, hopefully.
Mine too. I love Salida. I am calling in from Durango, Colorado, where I live. But I regularly travel the state of Colorado. I am all over, and Salida is always a stopping point for me when I'm on my way to the Front Range. And we work with several companies around there. Deerhammer's in the book, but I won't digress. It's a great little town. I love where you're at right now.
I was kind of close to your neck of the woods this past weekend. I was down in Pagosa Springs.
We were so close. Next
time,
I'll have to hit me up when you're in the southwest of Colorado.
Yeah, that was it's crazy. That was kind of my first trip down there. But me and my girlfriend went down there and skied Wolf Creek and went to the hot springs and did all that, and then came home Sunday.
You can't go to Pagosa without going to the world's deepest hot springs. I think it's such a cool place.
It was fantastic, but I still smell like sulfur. Like I can't get that smell out of me. It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Try being a lager brewer, right?
Kris with a K is literally sitting on a beach. He's like, yeah, don't y'all hate the saltiness in the hair after surfing all day as we're navigating snowstorms?
These margaritas are terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm envious, Kris with a K.
This is going to be an interesting
I am
situation.
heading back to New York soon.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm going back on Sunday after 6 months. So I'm soaking up every last minute.
Okay, so tell for our listeners at home, y'all, we have Kris Moon from the James Beard Foundation who has kind of helped pilot the campaign for outreach and working with the Open for Good with Independent Restaurant Coalition. And y'all just heard Emily Hutto, who runs the Radcraft beer collab here in Colorado. So y'all definitely want to follow both of these folks online because they have a lot more information about what we're about to talk about. But before we get any further, Kris, why are you coming back to the States? Like, why? It sounds fantastic.
That's the $1 million question, right? Adult things that are no fun to talk about, stuff that I need to take care of back in New York. So it may be a short trip. We'll see. Check a couple things off the list and make my way back to Mexico. We'll see. But it'll be good to be home for a couple of weeks.
Well, I feel that I feel for you going back to the winter weather. It seems like Kris was mentioning, everyone's been getting dumped on, but we kind of like to prefer Colorado is kind of like Neverland if you never want to grow up or never go back to reality. So, I mean, if you ever get the wild hair, come join us out here.
Yeah.
I may have to do that.
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings us into a perfect segue that I love to do on a regular basis. We like to start every episode with a little bit of get to know you about our guests. And so I'm going to start with ladies first. Miss Emily, we like to ask all of our guests this question. And so we're going to get into the nitty gritty. Are you a native to Colorado, or are you a transplant like the rest of us?
I'm a native. I was born in Greeley, of all places, and I actually I was born at the hospital there. Grew up on a farm for the first few years of my life, and didn't return to Greeley until I was back to go to a brewery. Let's see here. Yep, I grew up in Colorado in the Front Range area. I went to the University of Oregon on hiatus in the state of Oregon for a little while. Discovered home brewing in college, which led me to beer writing because I got a journalism major and realized that no magazine would hire me as an editor right off the bat, but they might let me write a couple articles about beer. So my beer writing started young, and that turned into lots of publications and a book about beer, and a lot of brewers knocking on my door asking if I could help them write complete sentences for their brand too. So Radcraft really developed pretty organically out of a need for just filtering the freelance that we were doing for some breweries and distilleries. And now 8 years later, I can give you my elevator pitch, which is that we are a craft communications company. We like to support maltsters, brewers, and distillers because we're deeply rooted in the agriculture that makes the fermented products that we love so much. And this coloring book is something that's near and dear to my heart because I think that beer and spirits and all craft beverages really extend to a greater conversation about hospitality. And I've long been a huge fan and supporter of the James Beard Foundation. So it's amazing to be here with you all today. Thanks.
So I have a two-parter to follow up with the original question. Obviously, since you're a wordsmith, don't hate on me because I do panic and I say and I don't use proper verbiage all the time. I don't know all the words I use. Some big words I just throw out there and I think they work. So don't judge me for that. My second question, as someone who kind of got into the brewing game while in school in Oregon, but growing up here, and I believe not only in the cannabis but also in the craft beer scene, we seem to kind of vie with each other as who is the king or queen of the country. Who would you say has a better craft beer scene, Colorado or Oregon?
That is a tough call.
It's a pretty biased question. I laid it up for you.
I'm going to break it down to ingredients because I think that the Pacific Northwest is producing some of the world's most premier hops, and that craft as growers and agricultural masters is really time honored and amazing out in the Northwest. Whereas here in Colorado, we're much more of a malt state. And I think that the barley being grown, or I should say harvested and malted here in the state of Colorado, is some of the world's finest. So I'll kind of pick my ingredients based on which state. And I can't pick one, but I'll go there.
All right. Okay. Well, that was fickle. So I'll give it to you. I thought you were just going to be like Colorado. Screw Oregon. Like it's an easy slam dunk for the home state. I passed the torch to Kris.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
I got two more follow-up questions, and then we can get into introducing Kris with a K. So number one, you said a brewery brought you back to Greeley. Was it Wiley Roots or was it WeldWorks?
It was neither. And in fact, when I was back there I was probably 23 or 24, neither Wiley Roots or WeldWorks had opened yet. I was going to visit the first craft brewery in Greeley, which is Crabtree Brewing. And at the time, they had made this Berliner Weiss collaboration with Euclid Hall in Denver because Euclid Hall is so food and ingredient focused about their beer pairings, and they wanted to create the syrup that traditionally goes into Berliner Weiss. And I heard about them that way.
Nice.
And that was when I
Okay.
was working on a book I was writing. So I drove up there to taste Berliner Weiss in the town I was born.
Okay. And follow-up question, since you're a native, is it true that when you get kind of this whiff of cow dung around like Denver or Boulder, it's going to snow? Is that a fact? It comes from Greeley, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go fickle on this one again, Kris, with a C, because I think it depends on the day.
I've always heard that. And sometimes it's happened where I've been in Boulder and I'm like, that smells interesting. And then all of a sudden the next evening it snows.
Northern Colorado has a ton of farmland, so I think it kind of depends on the day, but I'm not sure about the direct weather correlation pattern there. I got nothing.
Okay.
Those were perfect lead-up questions. That was well done, Kris, with a C. We're really firing all cylinders. Well, speaking of, I guess, just the change of winds, let's take it a different direction. Our other guest who's calling in with us, Emily kind of prefaced, he works with the James Beard Foundation. Mr. Kris Moon or Christopher, which one's easier for us? What do we call you?
Oh, Kris is great. Kris is great. Thanks.
We have Kris Moon from the James Beard Foundation. We did a little research on your background, and we know that you're the chief operating officer now, but you have a long history of working with the company or with the foundation, and not only in their sponsorship, but also in their outreach campaign. And we not only thank you for joining us today, but tell us a little bit about not only your gig, but also your history. You're not a transplant to Colorado, obviously.
I'm not. Thanks. It's great to be here today. But I'm not a transplant, but I will say I was born in Lawrence, Kansas, and I was raised in Kansas City. And we used to vacation in Colorado when I was growing up. And I heavily considered going to college in Greeley, though it wasn't where I ended up. So I have a lot of connection to the state, the great state of Colorado, beautiful state. But I ended up going to school in Boston and then moved to New York after that. And after about a handful of years in New York, ended up working at the James Beard Foundation, and specifically started my career at James Beard at the James Beard House in New York, which was, James Beard's home. I worked there for a number of years, overseeing the facility and working with a number of the visiting chefs, and then had moved into a number of different roles with the foundation over the years. But if we're talking about fun background facts, I actually grew up as a musician, and that's what took me to the East Coast. I was a pianist and an opera singer. And it's a funny piece of my past because most people don't know James Beard actually moved to New York because he was an aspiring opera singer. And when that career didn't pan out, he ended up in the food industry, wrote a book about orders and canapes, and then started the catering company and found his way into food. So I always find it funny that I moved to New York in a very similar vein and have ended up working most of my career at the James Beard Foundation in a bunch of different roles, but it's been incredibly satisfying to be a part of this industry.
Okay, so that first off, that is a weird parallel. It's kind of like the Kennedy Lincoln thing with the assistants or whatever, the secretaries' names, but not in like as gory or anything like that. But how did you, I guess, translate where you're like, well, I don't want to be a pianist for my whole life, I still love food, or was it like this artist finds another medium sort of? How did you find that niche that the James Beard was going to be, our restaurant industry was going to be your jam?
Yeah, I mean, I think I worked in restaurants even in Kansas when I was growing up, and through high school, I worked kind of in the food industry. I think as a lot of us do. And when I moved to New York as an artist, even more so. You find aspiring artists who move to New York and find their way into the service industry as they're auditioning, trying to get their next break, progress their artistic career forward. And so I did something very similar. I was waiting tables, was bartending, and doing that at nights and auditioning and hustling during the day for my kind of career as a musician. And it was only after a handful of years that I think I firmly appreciated how much I loved the hospitality industry. It's something I had always worked in, but I do think I think you said it really well. There's a kind of transference, if you will, that you see you see that people who work in this industry, and particularly who create in the food and beverage industry, are artists in their own right and in their own way. And you find that commonality of the people that in the community